One book, one extraordinary life. 48 chapters of saints, science, and the search for God.
I'm Kai.
And I'm Maya.
And this is our take on Autobiography of a Yogi, chapter by chapter.
A plump, bearded man sitting on a leopard skin looks at a teenage boy and says, "Son, I am glad to see you. Say what you want. Would you like some perfume?"
Chapter 5. A Perfume Saint displays his wonders. And this is one of those chapters that's deceptively simple on the surface. A yogi makes perfume appear from nowhere. That's the headline. But underneath, Yogananda is asking a much deeper question. What's the difference between a real miracle and a spiritual sideshow?
And the chapter actually begins with a quote from Ecclesiastes. "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven." Yogananda didn't have the wisdom of Solomon to comfort him. He gazed searchingly about on any excursion from home, looking for the face of his destined guru. But his path did not cross his own until after high school.
2 years elapsed between his flight with Amar towards the Himalayas and the great day of Sri Yukteswar's arrival into his life. During that interim, he met a number of sages: the Perfume Saint, the Tiger Swami, Nagendra Nath Baduri, Master Mahasaya, and the famous Bengali scientist Jagadish Chandra Bose. This chapter covers the first of those encounters. And the interesting thing is, it's actually 3 encounters packed into a single day. 3 very different kinds of spiritual encounter, each teaching Mukunda something different about what he's really looking for.
And I think that's deliberate on Yogananda's part. He's showing us how a seeker learns to distinguish between wisdom, spectacle, and the real thing. Each encounter is a calibration of his inner compass. 3 encounters. The first happens at a temple of Kali, where Mukunda is standing silently before the image, and a voice behind him says something that stops him in his tracks. God is simple. Everything else is complex. Do not seek absolute values in the relative world of nature.
He turns around and finds a tall, wandering sadhu, and Mukunda is impressed. "You have indeed penetrated the bewilderment of my thoughts," he says. He'd been wrestling with exactly that confusion, the paradox of Kali, who represents both creation and destruction, benign and terrible at once.
And the sadhu engages him in this remarkable philosophical conversation about self-scrutiny, about how the way of self-expression and individual acknowledgement produces only egotists, while true self-analysis mathematically operates to produce seers. The sadhu's austere face was noticeably softened as he spoke. The one who practices a scalpel self-dissection will know an expansion of universal pity. Release is given him from the deafening demands of his ego.
And then the sadhu says something that connects to what we were talking about last episode with Kibbalananda and Lahiri. The love of God flowers on such soil. The creature finally turns to his creator, if for no other reason than to ask in anguish, "Why, Lord, why?" By ignoble whips of pain, man is driven at last into the infinite presence, whose beauty alone should lure him.
Right, and that's exactly what happened to Mukunda in chapter 2, isn't it? The grief over his mother drove him toward God, the whip of pain. But the sadhu is saying the beauty alone should be enough. We shouldn't need suffering to push us there. We should be drawn by the beauty.
And I think that tension runs through the whole book, actually. The suffering that opens the door versus the beauty that should have been enough to open it all along. Mukunda keeps encountering both: the loss of his mother, the failed escape to the Himalayas, the longing that won't let him rest, and then these moments of pure beauty and recognition that flash through like lightning.
And the sadhu has more to say about the human condition. Mukunda asks him whether he has any sympathy for the bewildered masses, and the sage is silent for a moment, then answers obliquely. To love both the invisible God, repository of all virtues, and visible man, apparently possessed of none, is often baffling. But ingenuity is equal to the maze. Inner research soon exposes a unity in all human minds, the stoutward kinship of selfish motive. And he says an aghast humility follows this leveling discovery. It ripens into compassion for one's fellows.
So the path to compassion isn't through idealism, it's through honest self-examination. You discover your own selfishness, and that humbles you. And from that humility, compassion naturally grows, because you realize everyone is fighting the same internal battle.
Exactly. And then there's this beautiful exchange about India's spiritual heritage. The sadhu surveys Mukunda thoughtfully and says, "You are young. India, too, is young. The ancient rishis laid down ineradicable patterns of spiritual living. Their hoary dictums suffice for this day and land. Not outmoded, not unsophisticated against the guiles of materialism, the disciplinary precepts mold India still.
They visit the Calcutta temple together, and the sadhu dismisses the ornate magnificence with a sweeping gesture. Bricks and mortar sing his no audible tune. The heart opens only to the human chant of being. And then, as they part at the entrance, the sadhu reveals a clairvoyant perception. After you leave here today, an unusual experience will come your way.
And that prediction sets up the rest of the chapter perfectly. Mukunda leaves the temple and wanders along aimlessly. He runs into an old acquaintance, one of those long-winded fellows whose conversational powers ignore time and embrace eternity. And this man will not let him go. He held Mukunda by the hand, forcing out tidbits of information. The longer Mukunda spoke, the more hungrily the man sniffed for news.
Mukunda is desperately trying to escape. He actually prays inwardly to the goddess Kali to devise a graceful means of escape. And then, mercifully, the man leaves abruptly. But with a bound, he comes back, grabs Mukunda's shoulder, and says, "I forgot to tell you of Ganda Baba, the Perfume Saint who is gracing yonder house." He points to a dwelling a few yards away. "Do meet him. He is interesting. You may have an unusual experience."
An unusual experience. The exact same words the sadhu at the temple had used. Mukunda notices the echo immediately. And I think this is one of those moments that Yogananda is always pointing to throughout the book, where the universe seems to be coordinating events. The sage prophesied an unusual experience, and now this random acquaintance delivers the very same phrase, like a messenger who doesn't know he's carrying a message.
It's like the universe has a script and is feeding people their lines. And Mukunda is learning to read those signals. He's developing that sensitivity to coincidence that saints seem to operate by, so he follows the lead.
Definitely intrigued, he enters the house and finds a commodious parlor, a crowd of people sitting orient-wise on a thick orange-colored carpet. And an odd whisper reaches his ear. Behold Ganda Baba on the leopard skin. He can give the natural perfume of any flower to a scentless one, or revive a wilted blossom, or make a person's skin exude delightful fragrance.
And Ganda Baba looks directly at Mukunda. His quick gaze rested on him. He was plump and bearded, with dark skin and large gleaming eyes. "Son, I am glad to see you. Say what you want. Would you like some perfume?" And Mukunda's response is pure Yogananda. "What for?" He thought the remark rather childish.
And then begins this extraordinary exchange. Ganda Baba says, to experience the miraculous way of enjoying perfumes. And Mukunda shoots back, harnessing God to make odors? And Ganda Baba, unfazed, says, what of it? God makes perfume anyway.
And Mukunda keeps pressing. "Yes, but he fashions frail bottles of petals for fresh use and discard. Can you materialize flowers?" And Ganda Baba says, "I materialize perfumes, little friend." And Mukunda says, "Then scent factories will go out of business." I love this exchange because Mukunda is being deliberately provocative. He's testing this man. He wants to know if there's substance behind the spectacle. And there's a humor to it. He's basically heckling a miracle worker.
And Ganda Baba seems to enjoy it, you know? He's not offended. He responds to each challenge with patience and a kind of amused confidence. You get the sense he's encountered skeptics before, but Mukunda's skepticism isn't cynical, it's spiritual. He's not saying miracles don't exist, he's saying they might not matter. And Ganda Baba takes it all in stride. I will permit them to keep their trade. My own purpose is to demonstrate the power of God. And Mukunda asks, "Sir, is it necessary to prove God? Isn't he performing miracles in everything, everywhere?" And Ganda Baba says, yes, but we too should manifest some of his infinite creative variety.
Then Mukunda asks how long it took to master this art, and Ganda Baba says 12 years. And Mukunda, with characteristic directness, says, "For manufacturing scents by astral means. It seems, my honored saint, you have been wasting a dozen years for fragrances which you can obtain with a few rupees from a florist shop."
And Ganda Baba doesn't get offended. He gets philosophical. Perfumes fade with flowers, he says. And Mukunda replies, perfumes fade with death. Why should I desire that which pleases the body only? And then Ganda Baba calls him Mr. Philosopher and tells him to stretch forth his right hand.
Mukunda extends his hand. He's a few feet away from Ganda Baba. No one else is near enough to contact his body. The yogi doesn't touch him. He asks, "What perfume do you want?" And Mukunda says, "Rose." And Ganda Baba says simply, "Be it so."
And from the center of Mukunda's palm, the charming fragrance of rose was wafted strongly, not faintly, strongly, from his own skin. No bottle, no flower, no contact whatsoever. And then Mukunda takes a large white scentless flower from a nearby vase and asks, "Can this odorless blossom be permeated with jasmine?" And Ganda Baba says again, "Be it so." And a jasmine fragrance instantly shot from the petals.
And here's what really confirms it wasn't autosuggestion or hypnosis. Mukunda goes home and his sister Uma meets him at the door. "You are getting quite stylish using perfumes," she says. Without a word, he motions her to smell his hand. What an attractive rose fragrance. It is unusually strong. And then he silently places the jasmine-scented blossom under her nostrils. Oh, I love jasmine. She seizes the flower, and a ludicrous bafflement passes over her face, because she knows this type of flower is scentless.
Her reactions disarmed any suspicion that Ganda Baba had merely induced an autosuggestive state. Uma could smell it independently. The fragrance was objectively real. But here's what I find most interesting about this chapter, Kai. Yogananda's conclusion about Ganda Baba is not what you'd expect from someone who just witnessed a genuine miracle.
Right? He says, "A guru too literally marvelous was not to my liking. He left Ganda Baba's parlor with polite thanks and no intention of returning. Despite witnessing something completely impossible by ordinary standards, Mukunda is unmoved because the miracle, however real, served no spiritual purpose. It demonstrated power, but it didn't transform consciousness."
And later in the chapter, Yogananda provides the explanation of how Ganda Baba accomplished his materializations. The different sensory stimuli to which man reacts, tactile, visual, gustatory, auditory, and olfactory, are produced by vibrational variations in electrons and protons. Those vibrations are regulated by lifetrons, subtle life forces. Ganda Baba, tuning himself with the cosmic force through yogic practices, was able to guide the lifetrons to rearrange their vibrational structure and produce the desired result.
And there's a friend of Mukunda's named Alakananda who had his own encounter with Ganda Baba. Alakananda told Mukunda about attending a gala occasion at Ganda Baba's home in Burdwan with about 100 other guests. Because the yogi was reputed to have the power of extracting objects out of thin air, Alakananda laughingly requested him to materialize some out-of-season tangerines. And immediately, the luchis, the flat, round Indian breads on everyone's banana leaf plates, became puffed up. Each bread envelope contained a peeled tangerine inside it, and Alakananda bit into his own with some trepidation, but found it delicious.
So Ganda Baba could do more than just perfume. Fruit appearing inside bread, that's a whole different order of materialization. And Yogananda takes this seriously enough to offer an explanation of the underlying mechanism.
So it's not magic. It's science operating at a level we don't yet understand. His perfume and fruit and other miracles were actual materializations of mundane vibrations, not inner sensations hypnotically produced. But then Yogananda makes the critical distinction. Performances of miracles such as shown by the Perfume Saint are spectacular, but spiritually useless. Having little purpose beyond entertainment, they are digressions from a serious search for God.
And that distinction is really important because it's easy to confuse the two. Someone who can do amazing things looks impressive, but Yogananda is saying impressive isn't the same as transformative. Ganda Baba could fill a room with jasmine, but did anyone leave that room closer to God? That's the real question.
And it raises something I've been thinking about across these chapters. Every saint Mukunda meets is teaching him something, even the ones he doesn't stay with. The sadhu at the temple taught him about self-scrutiny. Ganda Baba taught him that miracles without spiritual purpose are digressions. Even the encounters that seem like dead ends are part of the curriculum.
And he goes further. He says hypnotism is trespass into the territory of another's consciousness. Its temporary phenomena have nothing in common with the miracles performed by men of divine realization. Awake in God, true saints effect changes in this dream world by means of a will harmoniously attuned to the creative cosmic dreamer.
And then he invokes the Persian mystic Abu Sa'id, who once laughed at certain fakirs proud of their miraculous powers. Abu Sa'id said, "A frog is also at home in the water. The crow and the vulture easily fly in the air. A true man is he who dwells in righteousness among his fellow men, who buys and sells, yet is never for a single instant forgetful of God."
That's such a powerful standard, you know? The measure of a saint isn't what extraordinary things they can do. It's whether they remain conscious of God while doing ordinary things, buying and selling, living among people. That's the real miracle. Abu Sa'id also said on another occasion that the religious life means to lay aside what you have in your head, meaning selfish desires and ambitions, to freely bestow what you have in your hand, and never to flinch from the blows of adversity. That's practical sainthood. No perfume required.
And this is exactly what Lahiri Mahasaya embodied as a householder saint, running a railroad office by day, meditating by night, performing miracles almost reluctantly. and what Sri Yukteswar will embody when Mukunda finally meets him. Not spectacular, not showy, just the steady presence of someone who lives in God.
And one of Gandababa's own students told Mukunda something revealing. He said that the saint doesn't always perform his perfume feats in the simple verbal manner Mukunda had witnessed. His procedure differs widely to accord with diversity in temperaments. He is marvelous. And many members of the Calcutta intelligentsia were among his followers. So Gandababa had a real following. He wasn't some charlatan. But for Mukunda, real wasn't the same as right.
And the chapter ends with Yogananda reflecting on the whole day. Neither the impartial sage at Calcutta temple nor the Tibetan-trained yogi had satisfied his yearning for a guru. His heart needed no tutor for its recognitions and cried its own bravos the more resoundingly because unoften summoned from silence. When he finally met his master, he taught him by sublimity of example alone the measure of a true man.
The heart needed no tutor for its recognitions. It already knows. It's just waiting for the real thing to arrive. And Mukunda hasn't found it yet, but every encounter is refining his ability to recognize it when it comes.
Next time, Maya, we meet a man with a chest like a pair of footballs, arms like tree trunks, and a past that includes fighting royal Bengal tigers with nothing but his bare hands. The Tiger Swami.
And wait until you hear what made him stop fighting tigers. It wasn't what you think. See you next time.